Yo.
Really?
Yeah, we're here
Yeah.
again.
So,
at the
Nate,
table. Don't call me by that name.
did you get any presents for Christmas?
Well, I mean, I was raised Jewish. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, quite a few actually. Yeah,
Nice.
I got an Xbox One. It's pretty cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Happy for you, man.
I don't care. I don't care.
Did you get anything for Christmas? Any presents? No.
I was raised Catholic, so no.
Welcome back to Full Circle. This is episode 6. Today we are joined by Nathaniel, Skyler, and yours truly.
Gerard.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And today we're going to talk about the present. So, what's happening right now in the moment, living in the moment. What do you think when you hear about living in the moment?
Then it's a fucking bullshit cliche.
I mean, that's one way to start. That's one path, many possible paths that can flange out from the present. The present is a gateway to multiple futures, but you only get to pick one.
The future isn't real.
The future is created.
The past isn't real. You can't go
That's
back to it.
You can't ever go back to it.
So, that bullshit cliche, all you really do have is right here, right now. And for whatever reason, you decided to be wasting your life spending it on YouTube, watching videos.
Very disappointed.
I mean, good for you.
I mean,
man.
honestly,
good for you. Yeah, you could be doing way worse. You could be snorting heroin.
I'll let it slide if you
White
give this
China.
video a like. I'll let it slide.
No, black
So.
white shirt. What's really, just to spark the conversation, I guess, what's really interesting about the present is about time. It isn't as it is in Western ideology. The eternalness of time, because everyone can relate to this. When you're in a shitty-ass moment, time takes forever, man. That's real. The time does slow down, and it's an eternal clock. You're just like, it just beats on. Whereas, when you're enjoying yourself, having a good time, it really does.
Maybe that's where they came up with the saying. Time flies when you're having fun.
That's exactly why they came up with
There
it.
are origins
Probably.
for phrases like that, so it makes sense. What we call living in the moment really is our perception. The present is all perception. It's whatever you make of it,
You prepared for this, didn't you?
I didn't prepare for this.
Goddamn liar.
I did not. We just chose the topic like literally 10 minutes ago.
Not even 10 minutes ago.
Not even 10 minutes ago.
I feel like this has been brought up before.
Yeah, I feel like it has to. That's not living in the moment, Jared.
You're living in the past right now, so.
But I was prepared for the future, which those cancel out. That means it's the present. So.
That's not how math works.
No.
That is definitely not how math
Pretty
works.
sure.
Well, I just invented my own form of math, so.
I cannot argue with that. That's fair. That's fair. It's been done several times. Yeah, that's fair.
I was just like, this is happening.
Aristotelian math worked.
Yeah.
It did. It's not real, but it worked.
No. But yeah, I mean, the present, it's perception. It's a lot of different factors together. It's our sensations. It's part of our past experiences, and it's part of our expectation for the future. Those kind of make together what we call the present, because the present is really all we ever experience, ever. So that's why the concepts of a past and a future are so real, because they're always somehow integrated into the current moment.
I'll agree with that. But play devil's advocate for me.
Okay.
I didn't go to say everything you said is completely false. Because when you relive an experience, traumatic or good, you're not in the present. You're not living right here, right now. Let's say you had a bad breakup. Most have been through that. I know a few couples who were one and done, but most have been through a bad breakup in some way, shape, or form. Well, it's getting late, you're finished watching your Netflix or whatever you're watching, and you're about to go to bed. Well, your mind starts to wander, naturally. That's what it does. And then all of a sudden you're thinking about this time you're with this wonderful person, and the pain comes back.
I understand that.
It's no longer living, because it's an illusion though. That's not right there. You're just sitting in your room, laying in your bed.
But here's the thing, is that you have to look at it as like you're always in the present, but you may not always experience the present completely. Like you might be more focused on the past in memory, and that may take more of your consciousness, and you're just unconsciously in the present. It could kind of work like that too. The present's always somewhere in your mind, because that's we're moving through time continuously. Time flows like a river. You can't jump back, and you can't just jump forward. There's always some degree of being in the present. But I understand what you're saying, is that it really is a true phenomenon that you'll experience them, you'll relive something that was just emotionally, visceral to the core, and it's almost like you're taken back. You don't feel like you're in the present, but you really are. It's part of that awareness too, if you think about it, because you're not aware that you're in the moment, but you really are. You just happen to be caught up in something that happened to you in the past and was really, meaningful. Those kind of experiences, we tend to attach quite a bit of meaning to them, and that's why we experience them so vividly.
How do you get back to the present, Skyler? How would you get back? How do you get back to the moment?
Oh, goodness. Try and, I guess in a way, center oneself. I'd say, try to let those thoughts not linger, and to, I don't know, if I personally do it through exercise. Just kind of, in a way, I guess, feel the real pain of either, working out, so the pain of, hurting those muscles, so that you feel something tangible, something not from the past, but something that you actually feel, and that you will continue to feel until it's all over, and that way, I guess, it brings you back to reality, in a way. For me.
It's a really
you
good
need
example.
you need to be careful with that though, because the first thing I got out of that is self-harm.
In a way, I mean,
That's for the better if you don't overdo it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about him in particular. I'm talking about in general, based off of what he just said.
How about just the thought process?
Yeah, you're feeling emotional pain, right? Let's
Yeah.
say you have a traumatic moment. Let's say you lost someone, and it's been a year now. You're still having a hard time. Instead of people always look for those outs,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's what you were describing, an out.
yeah.
Because another common now is taking that knife, taking a razor blade, and just going,
Yeah.
and but based off of what you said, that's it. But I can't condone that.
Yeah. That's not what I'm getting at. Let me see if I can reword it to where it makes more sense and to what I'm actually trying to say.
If you think about it, you're working towards a goal.
Yeah.
You're bettering yourself.
Yeah.
If the goal's negative.
But it's not to actually feel physical pain for the sake of feeling physical pain and harm. It's you feel a sense of pride and accomplishment where you're like, I'm tearing down these muscles and they're going to build back up stronger. It's like whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's kind of that phrase I like to think of it as.
In a way, yeah. And basically, I do feel it has that too. In the past, year, probably more closer to a year, put on 30 pounds, and it all basically stemmed from a breakup. And at first, it was to take my mind off of it. But then once I started seeing and actually having other people tell me the results, it actually became more of a focus. So it went from, just going in to get my mind off of things from, whatever was going on to actually having something to focus on.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where it's because you talked about centering yourself. That's what you said, and I agree with that. It's a good way to get back into the moment is by recentering yourself in whatever positive form it might take.
Yeah.
So maybe by you going to the gym, that was you living in the moment. That was you. You had a. It wasn't. Maybe it started out as an escape. Maybe. But you were able to be right there and then. You were able to just be right there. This is what I'm doing. I'm pumping iron. I'm doing squats. Whatever you were doing. or continue to do, maybe that became your moment.
It does. And it's actually, when you have a good gym day, we'll call it, we actually, you can feel it, everything kind of fall away, all the responsibilities, all the worry, all the doubt about past, future, whatever it is that you have on your mind, you can actually, in my experience, physically feel it fall away. And I think that's where they get the weight lifted off your shoulders. So you hear some people talk about that. I think if you truly can focus on something that
you just touched on something really important.
no,
You just touched on, by actually being right here and right now, you're free. That's contentment. It just is. This is it. Which is, if you don't catch that reference, very vague in Mahayana Buddhism, but that is liberating. You danced around it, and I appreciate that. What is it? Freedom in the moment. Freedom by being just here right now.
Well, I love what you said about centering yourself, because that's really what it's about. I mean, consciousness as we know it is a spectrum, and what we experience in the moment falls somewhere on that spectrum. And centering yourself is a way of bringing yourself back to that full focused awareness, where you take into account, your past, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, and same thing with the future, but you're mainly focused on living right now, whatever that may mean to you, whether it's emotional, physical, mentally. But I think it's dangerous when you get caught up in another form of consciousness that is destructive.
So the escape
is dangerous. Yes, it is. I think here's my opinion. I think if you have an escape and you really get something out of it that's positive, a positive takeaway, it means something. But if it's something that's negative or distracting, meant to distract you from centering yourself, I don't think it's very good. I think it's destructive. It's what can take someone who has a lot of potential and just spoil it, because they'll get caught up in whether it may be an addiction or sorrow or something of that nature, and they just can't live their lives because they can't get past it. Each one of us has experienced that in some kind of way, where we've been stuck on a different level of consciousness, and we've centered ourselves, and we've overcome challenges, and we've stayed focused. And that's what it's all about, honestly. Anyone can do it. It's just, are you in the right mindset to do it?
That would be different, though, than being in the moment. Because whatever you are feeling is that moment.
Exactly. That's why it's difficult. Why do you think it takes a transition, honestly. You can't just go from one to the other without some sort of input, whether it's internal or external. But I mean, I see what you're saying is that, we talk about living in the moment, and we all know what it kind of means to us intuitively, but really everyone has their own definition of what their preferred living in the moment really is.
Well, let's take a stab at it. Why not? Let's
talk about it?
No, yeah. Well, what's
you want to define it?
We'll try to take a group conscience here.
The collective unconscious, Carl Jung.
And attempt.
Very
because
key word.
it's all subjective in conventional reality. What does it mean to be living in the moment? Because there is a plethora of distractions. We are aware of that. We live in a modern society, at least in our part of the world. We do.
And honestly, our brain tries to filter out many of those.
Correct, and even just simply thoughts. Simply just thoughts are distractions. They are so impermanent. You go from thinking about someone who I respect very highly says, you go from thinking about drinking, getting a drink of water to that. This is the worst crisis in your life, in a very irrational and very chaotic thought process. That's just how every thoughts are chaotic.
Yes, very.
And that takes you away from the moment by thinking too hard, about something. Honestly, let's try to come up with a tangible attempt at a definition of what it is to live in the moment.
Okay. I mean, honestly, to me, the one I can give you a word that I think really, to me, best suits like the mindset of the present. To me, it's focus. You know, when you're focused.
But you can be focused on that train of thoughts. I mean, that doesn't. You see where I'm going with this? But you can be focused on such a small aspect that you don't incorporate the entire moment.
You can be at work and your mind can be focused on what's going on in your personal life or what's going on.
You're not there. That's
You're not
a
there.
great point. That's why it's.
Focus can be
Yeah.
in a good sense, but also what are you focusing on?
Which is why it wouldn't work for a definition purpose. I'll throw out another word.
Okay.
And this comes from a broader word of focus. It starts with observation. That's the start.
That's really
That's the start.
That's true.
Just observation of, and I'm not just going to say one word, of everything. You're here, right here. You're aware of
So
yourself.
omniscient observation.
Oh, and we'll take a step down from that, and we'll go to awareness. You're aware. You're just aware of what's happening right here, right now. I think that's anything to build off of that. Kind of an overall awareness, maybe.
Let's see. I just had a little idea. I think what helps me most of living in the moment is the little things, like the minute details. Something that you find joy in, and something like, just getting together with some friends. It sounds like it could be complex, but when you think about it, it can be really simple. Like, hey, you're surrounding yourself with people that you care about or with things that you care about.
I feel like that's.
And then it touches back on focus. You're focusing on things that bring you joy. And because they're bringing you joy, you don't quite feel it.
I hear what you're saying, but
If you
that's not, again, those are expressions of the moment. We're dancing around this idea right now of we're trying to come up with a definition of what does it mean to be in the moment. Very good interpretations, without a doubt. You're really talking about centering yourself to be in the moment, which is a critical. You definitely are trying to explain what it is to be in the moment, but I still feel like it's too focused.
the irony.
Exactly.
But I mean, I think we could build off of equilibrium.
And the only issue I had with that is to truly be here and right now, you don't put any energy or awareness into the future or the past.
But they're not always consciously aware.
I'm not arguing that. Definitely not arguing that.
What I'm trying to say is that equilibrium is like you establishing yourself in the moment because you're not focused on anything that is not actually happening. It's not tangible. You don't have to put energy into that. If you're not thinking about anything, and you've had no prior experiences and have no ambitions, you could just sit on a bench and you could truly be in the moment.
Now we're getting somewhere. There we
Right?
go. Keep building off of that.
So, but I mean that's
So now you see what I'm saying then, by having any
you don't have to
worry,
put any
concern,
energy into the
happy, joy, any emotion
system.
towards the present or the future, or the past or the future, my apology, that removes you from being there.
It's like an equation. So if you just think about it like this, a simple equation. If both sides equal 0, you're at equilibrium. You balance the scale. If you're receiving and you're not putting any like input into your own like senses or something that will alter your state of consciousness, I think that's when you can truly observe and experience the present. If you're not changing your state of consciousness, if you're not focusing on something that's not tangible in the moment, that's when you reach equilibrium. Because you don't have to put energy in it. Like I said, you could just lay in bed and you don't have to
be in bed.
Yeah, you could just be
Be in.
if there's no thought, and this is hard to imagine, but just say
This is it.
if there's no thoughts going through your mind, this is it. This is all you know. I mean, newborns are most vulnerable to this kind of perception. That's how they learn the world so quickly. They don't have as many complex thoughts nearly as we do. So that's kind of a part of it too,
I suppose relying on your senses.
It's
In a
kind of
way.
is that, yeah. And it's not,
We're going back to then just observing.
and it's not putting any real input in, which is like observing, because you're
And the
just
removal of the self.
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. So there's a couple different ways that you could put it, you know. But it's a very similar concept.
I think we would try building off of that. The removal of the self. The I, which we just discussed. The removal of that I. Removal of that ego, removal of the true self even. Removal of just completely any impulses, desires, or just you. For the awkward moments, you still have to be aware of yourself in the moment to be aware of everything.
Yeah.
You gotta be aware. Do I have a stomach? That's natural things. So, the removal of the construct that we make ourselves, our past and future.
Yeah.
So by the removing this is workable now.
Yeah.
What is living in the moment? The removal of the self. Which is, we're not giving a definition, we're giving a solution.
Well, which consequently too, when you remove the self, you're removing all that complex thought. You're
Exactly.
removing that input. You're removing like the changing. Of the
Removing your
spectrum.
agenda,
You're removing your agenda.
for lack of better words.
And think about it, it's like that is like balance too, because you could pick anything. You could pick the past, the future. You could pick left, right. You could pick day, night. But if you remove those biases or inputs, you fall at the middle of the scale. You're balanced. You become balanced. You found equilibrium. You're now observant. You get to truly observe the world for what it really is, and that's part of it. Because I know technically all of our senses could very well be different to a certain degree, and we could naturally perceive the world differently because of those differences. But you never know. And I think to each and every individual that the present really is just that. When you remove the self and when you're in the moment experiencing everything else for what it really is, no distortions. At least aside from natural distortions, you know.
So that is how to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Because then when you remove the self, let's just talk theoretics for a second. And then we go back to just this is it.
It's trending on philosophy right now, if you aren't already aware.
Just this is it. I know what the hard part I'm comprehending right now is how do you remove the self or still aware of yourself?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Or is that just
No,
not
it doesn't. No, I was thinking about that honestly.
Yeah. Huh.
I honestly think that thought's kind of coursed through my mind before too. Is I think that there's honestly been moments when I was like young where I honestly just try and live in the moment, and I'd be like, but I'm still here. I'm aware of myself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you think about that, and then you start to get sidetracked from it. You're like, what am I doing?
Because let's say that I've completely removed myself. I'm out of the equation. Out of the equation, right?
Yeah, you're still self-aware.
Not only that, and we're going back to conventional reality here, both of you are aware. I'm still external in that form of reality. In absolute, no. But in conventional reality, even if I've removed myself,
You still exist yourself externally as well
exactly,
as internally.
I'm not removed, and then once again I find myself back in the equation.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm trying to think about. It's like, then truly by definition, you must always exist in the present if you're like observing the present, if you're living in the moment. And what you're aware of yourself physically,
Maybe that's what life is.
what your self-awareness.
Not necessarily, but going off of that, because you were saying roughly, you always perceive our existence,
Yes, existential or being.
even if we've removed the self, we still perceive our own existence. So maybe because it's not big like I think therefore I am, 'cause that doesn't work because there's still some dude in Somalia right now living in Somalia. But maybe it's because I'm self-aware of that there's someone existing. Or I'm aware of that, so that's why it's like the Schrodinger's cat thing, except reversed. That makes sense?
Yeah. I kind of see that. I kind of like to think of it as like how light interacts in our universe. Light essentially being the speed at which information can travel, right? Fast as possible.
Necessarily
Speed,
true.
the speed of causality, right?
It's been broken, but
Well,
I hear what you're
forces.
saying. I hear what you're saying. Continue.
But, you know, information that propagates through the universe, and if you're not there, you know, who's to say that that information won't continue to go?
Because all of what life is becoming more self-aware. It's essentially what it is. It's becoming more aware of not only your place in the universe, but the universe itself. It's just
Yeah.
becoming more aware of. It's again the existential crisis.
And you interacting with that information makes it real to you, and you've confirmed that it exists. You know, there's things out there beyond our cosmic horizon that probably exist that we could never even really imagine, but we just can't perceive it. So
It then doesn't
it's
exist.
Not, to us, in our moment, it doesn't exist, but it really is on the same plane.
Let's go back to that. Let's go back to the moment. How does person X exist? He's not here right now. He's not real to me right now. She's not real to me right now. They're not real to me right now.
They're still there.
Exactly.
Because you're thinking about it in a way, right?
But what if I wasn't?
They still exist.
Yeah. Do we have any
I think
actual
the
proof?
problem though is that you're thinking about it abstractly, like it's an abstract construct
Yeah.
of what you think of them rather than physically. Physically, they're going to exist because, you know, matter in the universe can't just disappear. It's always there. I think our brains just
Sort
don't
of knowledge.
always, you know, I think our brains tend to think of these kind of, you know, concepts as abstract in nature, which, you know, it's tricky because then you're like, okay, well, could they just not exist if I just don't think about it? Is that a thing? And really, I mean,
I got something.
go on.
Say, so we talked about newborns, yes.
Mm-hmm.
How they rely solely on nothing besides input from their surroundings.
Yeah.
Basically, they have no thought in a way. They're
Yes.
developing, we can say. They have
Yes.
no conscious, like, they have thoughts, yes, but it's, what are they thinking? You know,
Maybe not.
They can't form them into words.
There's still a
In a way.
brand new newborn.
Yeah,
Probably there's
yeah.
not even a thought.
Yeah,
Sensory motor
something like that.
stage.
So they rely solely on senses. So I think living in the now, by removing, in a way, the thought of, you know, actions or,
You're a
you
sponge.
know, yeah, you just let everything, all the stimuli, in a way, you don't rely on thought. You rely on,
What is?
yes, in a way.
Think about newborns' object permanence, how that
Yeah.
develops. To them, people are those abstract concepts.
Look, going back to this,
They think
until
they disappear.
until like the age of 3, exactly. If you have a piece of paper up and you have a 2-year-old or whatever, or I don't remember the exact age, but you have like a toy car, you put it right here, they're going to still be looking right here because they're going to think it's going to come right there. So when it comes out like right here, they're going to be like,
Because they're all relying on their senses.
Correct.
They don't anticipate that.
but as we grow, we become aware that when this comes here, it's still there. It's not, when I move it like this.
That was a moment of levity right there.
Exactly. When I
appreciate
move it
that.
like this, though, it's still there. It's not going to be just gone.
But that's what I'm saying too, is that kind of goes hand in hand with the paradox of, is there
The
other
growing
intelligent life
self-awareness.
out there?
Well,
Like,
removing-
we can't see it, but it could be there. We just can't perceive it.
well, again,
Never
different
seen
talk. Different talk. I
Yeah.
hear where you're going, but different talk. But going back to that, because we are no longer... Because knowing that this is still here after that, that's a higher level of awareness, naturally,
Yeah.
I feel.
No, I agree with you on that.
And maybe it's not a thought, but maybe because it becomes a sense because it's so second nature to us. But at first it's a thought to realize that it's not from here to here, right? That's the first thought, right? Wait, maybe it's not like that, you know. Then maybe that develops into a sense. You see what I'm saying? Because now that becomes part of our reality. Because to know that this will still be here behind this if I move it like that, that's still being in the moment. That's even maybe adds to the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I'm not sure where I'm trying to take that though.
I can kind of
You bounce off
see.
of that. I mean, maybe since, like this, you know this is here, it becomes so second nature that, like, oh shit, he's walking over there. We still know this is here, but then we're focused on something else. I'm not quite sure where I was going with that, but I think it evolves into the second nature of things. Like, we so used to having things just always being there. We know that part. We've learned it from a young age, in a way. Not so, this is still here, but other things can enter our perceptions and distract us from things that we know are still here, in a way. So I think, like, it goes back to removing the thought of other stimuli to really, because like you said, we've been talking for almost an hour here, and it's felt like we've been on here for
Very short.
yeah.
So let's
It
say,
honestly feels like
let's
at
say,
most 30 minutes.
let's say a big distraction comes into play, like a marching band comes walking through. Just in summary, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge distraction. How do you still be in the moment with that distraction?
It's like what you said. It's like seeing the bigger picture. And it's about centering yourself, having equilibrium, and being able
The
to...
omniscient awareness you're speaking of.
Yeah, omniscient awareness, and not, distinguishing any particular stimuli in that form of focus. Focus is part of our perception because it's how we move through life. We look people in the eyes, we make conversation, we focus on what we want to say, but I think really being in the moment, having that omniscient awareness is just, truly giving undivided attention to your surroundings and not having any significant input into those surroundings, just taking it all in like a sponge. Because that's what newborns do, like we talked about. Newborns, they do it all the time, because what do they know about the world? They were in the womb for 9 months, and they come out, and there's this whole new world where they get to breathe oxygen.
They have to be completely
move
aware.
around and learn to walk. They have to be completely aware. That's why you have the sensory motor stage, because you're physically moving, and you're taking in all these senses from your surroundings, but they're still trying to understand what to do with all of it. They have no idea. It's not as instinctive. I mean, they have natural reflexes, sure. That's biological, but pure thought, they don't know what they're doing. They have to learn it by gaining understanding. And I would honestly say the newborns arguably are some of the most omnisciently aware of any of us for that ability to just naturally soak it all in.
Okay.
Because, I mean, think about how, like, when I'm at work, for instance, if I see any individual, like whether they're like a teenager, an older child, old person, middle-aged adult, they all will have some form of concrete abstract thought process, though they can make conversation, they'll look at you and then they'll look away. Newborns, I kind of notice though, they can just stare at you and they'll watch the things that you do, and they'll really be, you can look at them in the eye and you could understand, you're just like, wow, they're just super, like, aware of the moment. They're understanding what's happening on such, like, a high level that's almost like you wonder, like, what is going on in their minds right now?
Because, in closing my final thoughts, I think that's because they're still formulating the self. There is no self yet for them. So the removal of the self is already, it hasn't even developed yet.
That's a really good point.
So,
That's what they can do it better
yeah,
than anyone else.
because the self hasn't even been formulated, so there is no need to remove a self because there is no self.
There's no awareness or thought, like, construct that I am me. They don't know
Exactly. It's still just everything is one.
that. Oh my god. I think we kind of solved part of the problem.
I don't know about that.
way. But I
We
think
had a
that
thought about it.
But I
had a
honestly,
thought.
I think that leads to more understanding of what it really means to be aware in the moment and being in the present.
Any final thoughts, Skyler?
Damn kids. Yeah, I think it all kind of falls back to the equilibrium in a way. You said the removal of the self, but I think that's just it. The equilibrium. We talked about briefly how we have to remove the self, and how it's in a way so second nature to ourselves that sometimes we have trouble either removing the self or even realizing that it's been removed.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, that's really good.
Good one.
That's it.
That
I think
was
it's
good.
all kind of meshes into one big, hella confusing topic that we decided to pick tonight.
But it's so simple, but it's so
it's so
complex.
simple.
So simple. It's just now.
Is this you
Just
can't?
now.
It's now. But I think
Still
that
can't wrap
falls
your
back
brain
to
around
is
it.
that we've been accustomed to so much.
It's
stimuli.
unlearning everything.
Yeah, and it's so second nature to us that we sometimes don't even realize we're doing it. Like we've talked about, we've been here for
Probably
almost an
47
hour,
minutes.
basically, and
Very
I'm
specific time.
sure even hopefully with you guys
It's
watching
to my
this,
perception.
you'll be watching it, you won't even realize that shit, half your life's been over. We've been watching this video for longer than we think.
30 years.
30-year-long video.
Somehow we haven't aged. And we didn't eat any food this whole time, so we're just that awesome.
And only smoked 2 cigarettes for 30 years have done pretty fucking good.
Yeah, man.
Alright, well.
Well, I
That's
guess
all I had.
in closing, I'll say thank you for joining us once again for this very long, drawn-out, and philosophical topic. I hope that you got some tangible things out of it, some meaning from each of our perspectives, and anything else, guys?
Shit. If any of you guys actually watch this video, leave some comments what you think. Or just a topic or something. Talk to us. We're lonely.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's true.
So true.
Hey,
We have to make these videos.
I've got a question for the audience. It's okay.
I'm back.
I have a question for the audience. What is, if you can, a moment where you can describe where you truly felt like you're like the most in the moment out of your entire life? Think about that. And in closing, this has been Full Circle by Reunion. Thank you for joining us.
I love you. I love you. I do.
This
We
has
love
been
you.
This has been
Skyler.
Nathaniel.
Gerard.
And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
God, you son of a-
Damn it!